The strange world of the Googologist. Some people like to race fast cars, others to skydive or climb sheer rock faces. Googologists get the kicks from dreaming up ways to express larger and larger numbers. In some ways, it's the ultimate geeky pastime. It's easy to imagine a young Sheldon Cooper from the Big Bang series spending hours engrossed in Googology, competing online with other similarly inclined kids to name and define numbers or even more outrageous size. Googology has venerable roots stretching all the way back to Archimedes and his big number moving in the century corner. The Gogo itself was named a century ago, and the topic of large numbers became a familiar one in popular maths books beginning in the 1940s. Gogology falls under the umbrella of recreational maths and the pursuit for fun rather than with the expression that it will turn up anything of great importance. Research mathematicians in their professional capacity have little interest in numbers simply because of how big they may be. Their focus is on finding new proofs and principles and solving problems, but pure and applied only in some special areas of the subject, such as computability and the theory of fast-growing functions. As we've seen, is there some overlap with the quest that galvanizes the larger enthusiasts. Of course, Googologists are also often during the day involved with the mainstream maths as well. The truth is, you simply don't do this kind of thing in your spare time unless mathematics turns you on. We've already come across some mathematical heavyweights who've made contributions to the study of large numbers, including John Conway, Donald Knuth, and Hugh Steinhaus. In some cases, this happened as an unexpected spin-off of the main aim of the research. Conrad Graham, for instance, didn't start his work on solving an underscore problem in Ramsey theory with the intent of finding the immense number that's now named after him. Wilhelm Ackermann's whole aim in devising his eponymous function was to break new ground to computability theory by identifying a function that wasn't primitive recursive. It just turned out that the Ackermann function does lead to incredibly large numbers very quickly, though this fact isn't ever mentioned in the original paper. For the most part, Googology is a sideshow, an intellectual hobby pursued by people who are often students or graduates in maths or computer science and who have caught the big number bug. The more prominent Googologists run blogs or contribute frequently to websites and forums that are devoted to the pursuit of gigantic numbers. Among them is Adam Goocher, who now is a researcher in the statistical laboratory of Cambridge University. As a PhD student at Trinity College, Cambridge, Goocher mentored one of the authors, Agnijo, in his preparations to take part in the International Mathematical Olympiad. IMO. Goocher was a member of the UK team at the 2011 IMO, and Agnijo earned a perfect score of 42 points out of 42, along with a gold medal at the 2018 IMO before starting his maths degree in the same year, also at Trinity. Goocher invented something he calls the C function. This arises from an area of maths known as combinatory logic, which was introduced in 1924 by Russian logician Moses Sonfinkel and further developed by American logician Hans Kari a few years later. The original purpose of combinatory logic was to get around the need for quantified variables in mathematical logic and thereby to understand better some paradoxes that had recently arisen out of set theory. It closely related to the lambda calculus of Alonzo Church, and, like it, has been used in computer science as a model for computation. Kucher based his C function on combinators, which are the fundamental elements of combinatory logic and are the result of functions acting on themselves. The C function's claim to fame is that it grows faster than Radha's busy beaver numbers. In fact, C is one of the fastest growing functions ever defined, though it can be and has been surpassed by functions that outpace it. Another well-known googologist is the American amateur mathematician and self-described mega-arithmologist who goes by the pseudonym Swiss Sabian, a name he generated by randomly hitting letters on a keyboard. In 2008, at the age of 25, while still a college student, Sabian launched a web book called One to Infinity, a guide to the finite, which has since become a popular resource in the community. Sabian is the among most prolific coiners of Googolisms, unofficial and frequently humorous names for specific large numbers. She defines Googology as the practice or craft of generating, comparing, and naming large numbers, and the study and theory of how to do so. Fellow American amateur mathematician two with a master's with a master's degree in the subject from the University of Texas, famed for his last number work is Jonathan Bowers. Now in his 50s, Bowers is something of an elder statement of Googology and a pioneer of it, a subject with its own online following and self-invented rules and nomenclature. Bowers was inspired to delve into his own large number investigation, he said, by reading books on hyperoperators. All our amateur gogology starts in this way, on by circle basis in conventional maths, the hyperoperator series, fast-growing hierarchies, and so forth, where it goes from the depends on the ingenuity and mathematical competence of the gogologist. Some amateur gogological work is no more than an extension of mainstream theory, while other research are more controversial and provoke debate and disagreements among the community of big number celebrities and fans. A certain protocol has emerged among gogologists for what is acceptable and what isn't in putting forward ideas. Possibly the worst thing you can do in posting a Googology forum, apart from being abusive or otherwise obnoxious, is to propose what's become known as solid number. This starts from some existing number or function and consists of an uninteresting or inelegant extension of it without contributing anything new. The most obvious example is to say plus 1 after whatever last number proposal someone else has made. So if we have a big number naming contest and you start with Graham's number, I might counter with Graham's number plus 1 or Graham's number to the power of Graham's number, or even with G64 up arrows, which is roughly G65. None of my replies are particularly clever or original. It takes no great mathematical skill or leap of the imagination to jump a slightly bigger number once any given number, however large, has been identified and clearly defined. There's always the next number down to the number line, or that's twice as far long. But you start with Graham's number, and I then apply the same kind of methods used in reaching Graham's number to hope the something bigger. I haven't really broken new ground. I'm still in Graham's number line. An inelegant mismatch of existing numbers and functions put forward in attempt to outdo some original number or fast-growing function is a solid number and will attract scorn and derision for experienced and practitioners the gogological art. said this: a page has been set aside on one of the most popular large number websites, Googologist Wiki, solely for the enjoyment of those who want to indulge in mixing the most horribly complex and outrageous large number on the planet, the mighty, useless, whole incomprehensible quaternion. The arbitrary starting point for this mathematical monstrosity is the already insanely large BC beaver number. Given that we're still not sure that what the fifth BC beaver number, sigma 5, is, though it's too likely to be 4881, and all we know about the sixth is that it's at least is clearly inscribably huge. But the important point is that it's a well-defined specific finite number on the quaternion page. Users are invited to add their own ingredient to the salad by suggesting a way of making the final outcome as big as possible. X is used to represent the running total. In other words, the output that has resulted from all the previous steps, starting from beaver number. The first operations that appear on the page are: what on earth do they mean? Step 1 involves substituting the BC beaver number for x to give. So this straightforward hyperoperation represented in the form of arrows, albeit essentially many of them. Remember chapter 4 when we were talking about how nuts arrow notation works. We saw a surprising what first number was turning out as we started to unpack the arrows. After just a few lines unpacking, we were already confronted with and the knowledge that all alone has around 7,400 digits when written out in full. 2 up arrows 2 up arrows 3 2 3 up arrows 3 is a mere pentation of two small numbers but unpacks to something unfathomably large. The first step in making the quaternion is to apply up arrows to the base and power, and manically last output from this becomes our new value of x, which then fits into step 2. All we need to do for this is to find the new x BC beaver number, or in other words, which then becomes the x value to be put into step 3. Googologists love nothing more than dreaming up silly names for the codified super fast growing functions. Step 3. Mega Fuga X involves the combined action of these two functions, extrapolated from the conventional fast growing hierarchy by Spies-Saiban and defined and named by him on his last number side. So the merry madness continues on and on down the eccentric list of quotidian instructions. At step 12, we come across Congolus the 2x plus 1 plex, whatever that is. At step 13 is our friend the 3 function, the form 3xx. If you have the time and patience, you can visit the calculation page and check out all 3,978 steps that have been entered so far. A good place to start, though, is with the very first sentence on the page. Quaternion is groundbreakingly pointless Googolism, consisting of a ridiculous sequence of totally arbitrary steps. You have been warned. Mathematics is one of the most intellectual of pursuits. Certainly, it has important practical applications, and indeed its utility in such areas as commerce and architecture is what helped spur its rapid development among early civilizations. But pure mathematicians, math for math's sake, is an extreme challenge for the mind that's taken up irrespective of whether it might eventually be put to some real-world use. Not surprisingly, given that mathematicians are among the most elite of abstract thinkers, there's a long history of them pitting their wits against each other in competition. Such contests go back at least as far as 1500s, when in Renaissance Italy, rival mathematicians would pose each other problems and try to solve them, while others would bet on the outcome. Today's only official maths competitions are for young people, culminating in the annual International Mathematical Olympiad, but Googologists vie with each other to describe and name ever larger numbers. Each in academic world, challenges are sometimes issued in the form of puzzles to be solved and games to be won. Remember, Pierre de, Pierre de Fermat has written not in the margin of a book discovered after his death, which was almost certainly a dare to other mathematicians to try to solve what became known as Fermat's last theorem. In the last chapter, we saw how Thibaut Rado, in a 1962 paper, introduced his beaver function in the form of a game. The object is to find the maximum number of ones and state Turing machine can write before halting. In fact, Rado's game, as well as exploring the behavior of particular uncomputable functions, does have some significant connections with orthodox mathematics. Its importance in this respect has been highlighted by American theoretical computer scientist Scott Aaronson, who serves as David G. Barton Continual Professor of Computer Science at University of Texas at Austin as the founding director of UT Austin's Quantum Information Center. Aaronson is an example of leading academic whose work spills over into Googology. His essay, "Who Can Name the Bigger Number?" is widely referenced in academic computer science, as well as being a good, easy to follow introduction to large numbers in general. A more recent paper titled "The BC Beaver Frontier", published by Aronson in 2020, brings the story of Rado's function up to date and extols its virtue as a teaching aid. In my opinion, the BB function makes the concepts of computability and uncomputability more vivid than anything else ever invented. I recently taught my 7-year-old daughter Lily about computability. I did so almost entirely through the lens of ancient quest to name the biggest numbers one can. Crucially, the childlike goal, if pursued dark enough, is inevitably leads to something like the BB function, hence to abstract reasoning about the space of possible computer programs, the halting problem, and so on. Aronson also explains how further BC Beaver research may provide crucial insights into a number of open unsolved problems in number theory, set theory, and the foundations of mathematics. Among these is the collage conjecture, a hypothesis simple to state that it can be used as a math exercise for young children. It says that if you start with any whole number, divide it by 2 if it's even, and triple it, and add 1 of its odd, and add 1 of if it's odd, and keeping repeating these actions and over again, you will eventually end up with number 1. Despite repeated efforts by number theorists since German mathematician Lothar Kollátz first first forwarded the suggestion in 1937, it remains an open problem. French mathematicians Pascal Bissell and Aronson have both argued that understanding the behavior of Turing machines in BC Beaver games, especially determining when they halt, is closely related to resolving uh, the collage problem. Aronson also points out that the sequence of BC Beaver numbers test the limits test the limit of the system of axioms, so-called Zermelo-Fraenkel set theory, that forms the base of almost all modern mathematics. So, although most professional mathematicians don't share the hobby's fascination with defining and naming even more gigantic numbers for the sake of it, googology isn't without its merits. It may eventually have some long-standing open problems, and it reveals the limits of our current mathematical universe, just peering into space with the world's larger telescopes pushes back the frontiers of the physical cosmos. It's hardly surprising that googology, which is all about going further and faster, has given rise to several contests. One of the first of these was the Big Gnome Bake-Off, organized by American mathematician David Morse, who took first place in the 1984 International Mathematical Olympiad with a perfect score 42 out of 42 and earned his PhD from the University of California at Berkeley in 1993. Competitors in the Bake-Off held in December 2001 were challenged to produce the biggest number they possibly could, could for a computer program that was not more than 512 characters long, ignoring spaces in the programming language C. No present-day computer could actually complete any of the programs submitted within the lifetime of the universe, so entries were analyzed by hand and ordered based on their position in the fast-growing hierarchy. The winning entry was a program called Loader C after its creator, the New Zealander Ralph Loader. A computer with unfeasibly large memory and outlandish length of time available would be needed to generate a final output, but if it could be done, the result would be Loader's number, an integer known to be bigger than 3, and some other inhabitants of Googologist cosmos, such as SCG-13, the 13 member of the sequence of subcubic graph numbers. In 2007, a large number called the big number duel pitted philosophers and an old graduate school chums, Agustin Rayo, aka the Mexican multiplier of MIT, and Adam Elgar, aka Dr. Evil of Princeton, against each other in back and forth tournament to see who could define the most colossal integer. The numerical slugfest, which blended comedy, convoluted mathematical, logical, and philosophical maneuverings, and the melodrama of a world-title boxing match, took place in a back room in MIT's data center. Elgar opened optimistically with the number one, perhaps hoping that Rayo would have an off day, but Rayo swiftly countered by filling the entire blackboard with ones. Elgar promptly rapped out a line near the bottom of all but two ones, extending them into factorial signs. Then the duel progressed, eventually transcending the bounds of familiar mathematics until each competitor was inventing their own notations for each larger numbers. For 1 point, a spectator asked Elgar's once is the once spectacle Elgar is the number even computable? To which Elgar, after a brief pause, replied no. Finally, Rayo delivered the knockout blow with a number that he described as the smallest positive integer bigger than any finite positive integer named by an expression in the language of first order set theory with a Google symbol or less. Just how large Rayo's number is we don't know and probably never will. No computer could ever calculate it, even given access to a universe that could hold a Google symbol or more. Is Rayo's number the biggest number in the world? Clearly not, because there's always Gauss number one. Because there's also Gauss number plus one, not to mention the basic numerical salad that is quaternion, and which includes many ingredients that build on Gauss number. We also have to start thinking about the assumptions we make when we talk about very large numbers. Unlike the physical universe in which we live, there are many possible mathematical universes, each of which is uniquely defined by the set of axioms as the assumed truths that determines its nature.